What would you do if the sky went dark at noon and you had absolutely no idea what an eclipse was? For our ancestors, nature wasn't beautiful. They didn't appreciate a conjunction of the sun and the moon. That event was a horror movie. The human brain wasn't built to withstand inexplicable chaos. So to prevent a collective mental breakdown in the face of storms and volcanoes, our biology created a perception flaw, a survival trick that shaped all of human history. But what trick is this?
Imagine you are walking through the savanna 100,000 years ago. The tall grass in front of you begins to rustle. You have two options. You can assume it's just the wind, or you can imagine it's a hungry predator. If you assume it's the wind and it turns out to be a lion, you're dead. End of your bloodline. But what if you assume it's a lion and it's just the wind? You run, waste a little energy for nothing, survive, and pass your genes on. Because of this ruthless math, our brains were selected to be paranoid.
In evolutionary psychology, researchers like Justin L. Barrett and Pascal Boyer mapped this phenomenon. They call it HADD, the Hypersensitive Agency Detection Device. It's a complex academic term for a very simple survival rule. When in doubt, assume the worst. The human brain was biologically programmed to see intention where there is only randomness. That is why you see faces in the clouds. That is why your brain hears voices in the sound of the wind.
So when the earth shook violently and spat fire, or when lightning split the darkness, the ancestral brain didn't see a meteorological phenomenon. It saw wrath. Thunder wasn't an electrical discharge. It was someone in a fit of rage. This perception flaw saved us from the lions in the savanna, but it was about to forever change the way we would look at the rest of the world.
Now, take that same biological paranoia from the savanna and apply it to the universe. How did our ancestors look at the night sky? They saw thousands of random points of light, absolute chaos. But remember our evolutionary rule? The human brain hates chaos. The lack of control, the inexplicable generates a paralyzing stress. So they began to connect the dots, literally. Where there were only dead stars and space dust trillions of kilometers away, the human mind drew bears, scorpions, and cosmic hunters. You see, this wasn't a poetic pastime around the campfire. It was a survival technology. When you give names and shapes to the constellations, the sky stops being a terrifying void and becomes a map, a compass. If the hunter appears on the horizon, winter is coming. It's time to migrate. If I want to go north, I look for the great bear. But the starry sky is silent and peaceful. The big problem is when nature tried to kill you. A volcanic eruption, lightning tearing through the darkness, the earth shaking beneath your feet. The blind indifference of an earthquake is psychologically unbearable. If the earth shakes because of tectonic plates dozens of kilometers beneath your feet, you have absolutely no control over it. You are just an insect waiting to be crushed. But thanks to our previously mentioned hypersensitive agency detection device, the brain did what it does best. It invented an invisible agent. Lightning was no longer an electrical discharge. It was a weapon thrown by someone in the sky. The volcano wasn't magma under pressure. It was a furious mountain. The storm stopped being meteorology and became the wrath of someone. And why is this incredibly brilliant from a survival standpoint? Because you cannot negotiate with physics, with meteorology, or with glowing lava. But you can try to negotiate with someone. It was this exact technique that allowed humanity to control panic in the face of inexplicable situations. If the storm is just blind physics, you are defenseless. But if the storm is a furious entity, that fury can be appeased. And it was in that exact evolutionary millisecond that fear turned into ritual. For a terrified ancestor, the ritual functioned as an emergency button, a placebo for the collective mind.
When an eclipse darkened the sun, tribes beat drums, they made offerings, they begged the heavens for mercy. And guess what happened? A few minutes later, the sun always returned. For the human brain, which is a pattern-seeking machine, the conclusion was obvious and comfortable. It worked. We regained control. This false control was biologically vital. The ritual drastically reduced cortisol, the stress hormone. A tribe in constant panic paralyzes. It doesn't hunt. It doesn't reproduce. It collapses from the inside out. But a tribe that believes it has the power to control the rain through a dance acts with confidence. They maintain cohesion. They believe they are in control. Superstition wasn't proof of our primitive ignorance. It was the social trick that kept the human mind from going insane. The fear of divine punishment forced strangers to cooperate thousands of years before the first written law existed.
Invisible rules built the first real civilizations. We weren't the strongest species to inhabit prehistory. So why were we the ones who survived? Because we were the only species capable of creating stories and characters to calm our own fears.
The problem with all of this is that biology is terribly slow. Evolution doesn't download system updates. Our technology has advanced 5,000 years. Our brains have not. Our agency detection device continues to operate at maximum capacity. And it is exactly this that explains one of the greatest phenomena of the digital age: conspiracy theories. When a pandemic hits the world or the global economy suddenly collapses, thousands of people immediately create hidden narratives. For the human mind, accepting randomness is too painful. We prefer to believe there is a secret group of malicious people controlling the chaos behind the scenes, rather than accepting the terrifying truth that chaos has no master. It simply happens, and it is indifferent to the environment. No one is in control. No one is at the wheel. Reality doesn't care about us. And elevating this indifference to cosmic levels, everything becomes much more terrifying.
We have mapped the bottom of the oceans and the tops of the mountains. We predicted eclipses with exact mathematical equations. We invented electric light, built artificial neon suns and space stations that we already call home. Did we banish the ghosts from the darkness? Yes, we did. But in a dark vault at the back of your mind, the ancestral gear never stopped turning. We tamed the earth, fire, and space. The illusion of control calms us. But in reality, we never stopped being that little primate frightened by the storm in the savanna. And perhaps we never will. If you seek answers not found in traditional history books, subscribe. The Evolution of Ancestral Life in 2 weekly videos.